What is up, everybody? I'm NoLuxGiven here with your afternoon snap, and today we've got a bunch of new changes to Marvel Snap, so I'm just gonna run through the April patch notes for today's video. No gameplay. Figured there's a lot of other stuff going on that if I put out a gameplay video, it'll just drown, so I'm gonna do what everybody else is doing and run through these patch notes today. So first things first, we've got token shop updates, and for this, I'm just gonna skip over this for now and we'll look at it in the client in just a second, but anybody else can also look at it in the client and see that pretty easily. Updates to the game board. Okay, well, maybe we'll have to play some games in this after all. All right, we'll jump into a game. There is also the seasonal series drop, and I am definitely going to be taking full advantage of that. Most importantly, these cards have now dropped down to Series 3, and of these 5 cards, 2 of them I have, Shuri and Valkyrie, and 3 of them I don't, Bast, Super Skrull, and Black Panther. So I'll be grabbing 3 new cards today as well. Super excited about that, and then I'm basically gonna go back to not opening collector's reserves right after that. I do, like, it could be cool. I mean, I don't really care about Ghost, Stature, and MODOK, and basically where I'm at with series drops is it's more exciting if you just wait for them to come down rather than open up a whole bunch of collector's reserves just to get like one card that then you would otherwise get normally. If there's something that I really, really want, then like actually Shuri I just bought, right? But because I wanted Shuri so much, I opened up a bunch of stuff, and that is probably when I got Valkyrie a little bit ago. So I think for the most part, I'm just not really going to engage with this system. I'll engage with this system, but I won't engage with this system, I think is a fair way to put it. So some general updates in here as well. This we knew about. If you are infinite, you will only play against other infinite players. Honestly, I think that that's really tricky because infinite rank is how you can potentially bleed more cubes into the lower ranks. Marvel Snap is kind of a weird problem where you are the cubes are sum zero sum, and that means that because there's no like win streaking, I mean, you do get cube injections on the rank ups, but there's only 50 cubes injected there, and you need other ways to inject cubes. So that's why there's so many bots on the ladder as well. You kind of need them as a drawback of the system because there's no other way to inject cubes into it. And I think previously infinite players were potentially that cube injection because some people would care less once they hit infinite. The problem is some people still care, so they would still continue to get cubes, and then other people, like at really high levels of infinite, only play up against bots. I don't know. I still don't think that this system is perfect and is honestly the biggest turnoff for me in Marvel Snap. The fact that you have to play against bots, that there's no transparency when playing up against bots, and the fact that there's no, like, I don't know, there's no other easy way to just inject cubes into the system as it currently stands. So kind of weird, but for now, we'll see how this impacts things, that infinite players can only play against other infinite players. Yeah, it's kind of weird too that some people get infinite just by playing against bots, and maybe I do too. I have no clue how many of the players I play against bots. Yeah, I think this is a real demotivator, but we'll see if this makes things better or worse. I am normally optimistic about everything. I'm a little bit pessimistic about this change. I think that it might have some unforeseen consequences in terms of matchmaking, but we'll see. When you tap a card for more details on the shop or collection, the card detail screen now features artist credits, card series label, and variant rarity label. That's pretty cool. I think that, yeah, like, there's only really 3 rarities for variants, so it's not like super exciting, you just have 700 gold, 1200 gold, and then the ones that cost tokens. I guess those are the only 3 rarities, though. Where do you put in? I mean, I guess there's no real rarity difference for a card that costs $10 in the store and a card that costs $200 in the store, because you can kind of buy them both in the same way. Like, I'm talking about like bundle deals, like the Cyber Bundle deal versus the Welcome Bundle deal at the 2 ends of the spectrum. One's $3, one's $100, though one you can purchase with in-game currency as well. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting. I think rarities and stuff are cool at the very least. When inspecting cards in games, you can now flip them to see the card back in full detail. Cool. Okay, and other ways to check out the 3D details on card backs. That's interesting. Did not know that was really something that we needed. Card backs are kind of interesting in digital card games, and it's weird how both this game and Hearthstone implement things like when you steal cards from other players, they can appear differently in your hand and unflipped, as it were, in Marvel Snap. There's not really too big of a deal with that. One thing that I do wish, though, I wish there was a way with Weird World, which draws cards from your opponent's deck, to let you know which cards are created by Weird World and which cards are created by other things. Because as it currently stands, and I know they're not created by Weird World, but it's nice to know if your opponent like definitively has one of your cards or not, in a way that can let you get other information about what might be in their deck. So that is definitely something that I think is like kind of in the same realm as card backs and ownership and just card creation. This one is an interesting one. After 10 hours of gameplay, after roughly 10 hours of gameplay, players will stop earning Season Pass XP. And I have to imagine this means like actual gameplay, not just like sitting on the menu screen. And it doesn't mean that if you play at noon and you play at 10 p.m., then you're going to stop earning XP. It's just for like streamers and people that constantly grind the Season Pass XP. Kind of a nerf to Agatha, which I think is like not really talked about super often, but I think a lot of players would hit Infinite in the season and then just grind out Agatha games for Season Pass XP in a way where you can kind of just AFK and still earn a reasonable amount of wins. One thing that's kind of curious here too, is it actual games or is it a number? Because what is curious about Season Pass XP, as was pointed out to me by one of my viewers on a previous video, is you gain more XP for winning more lanes and winning games. So Galactus players, for instance, don't earn as much XP per game as non-Galactus players do. So will this be like because you blow up the other lanes and then can only win one lane, and then also people retreat sometimes when they are winning, which I'm not sure how that works for Season Pass XP. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. Do you potentially hurt yourself? I mean, you always hurt yourself by like playing Galactus as far as XP is concerned, but yeah, I'm just curious how that works. And then collection level track has been extended. Saw a few people posted that they were I think it was KM Best, I believe that's his name, posted that he was almost at the collection level track limit, which is crazy. But some new audio as well, that's cool. I don't really play with audio, but will be fun for those people, and it's nice for like coverage and things like that. Okay, then here's the meat and potatoes of it all. Balance updates. In the wake of our latest balance change, we saw the metagame settle into a much healthier shape than it had before. However, we were too shallow with Shuri Taskmaster decks and Lockjaw Leech combos, both with and without Thanos. Those are both strong. Today's changes are aimed at both of those decks. Outside of Shuri Taskmaster, the metagame is looking healthy. So, first things first, we've got to change to Shuri. And I rather like this change. So let's go through it here. Previously, Shuri 4-2 update. Well, we don't have to read the previous. New Shuri 4-2 on reveal. If you play your next card here, double its power. And that's just going to make Shuri a lot more predictable. And as these comments lay out, it also means that you cannot effectively utilize Shuri with Cosmo, which I think is really good. It still allows you to do a lot of really, really busted things with Shuri. Armor is now going to be really strong, and it will also let you still Shuri pass She-Hulk Taskmaster on the final turn. So there's still a lot of powerful plays that you can make, and the deck will still be really strong, just a little bit weaker. And I had already seen this change talked about on Twitter, and I wanted to talk about why it also isn't really a big deal. Now, in terms of Valkyrie, that's something else that gets mentioned here, and then also lane control elements like Professor X. Those things are going to get stronger in the wake of not being able to Cosmo where you drop your big card with Shuri. However, the one thing that this is kind of... am I wording this correctly? The one thing that this is still good against is Arrow as a counter to Shuri. Whereas typically what you would do is you would try to arrow your opponent's final turn back to wherever they played their Shuri card. So they play Shuri, then Red Skull in a lane. You would arrow them so that way their Taskmaster also shows up into that lane, and then you just try to win the other two. It's still basically just as possible, though it might happen a little bit less frequently, because now one of the stronger plays with Shuri has always been to actually fill up one of your lanes. And in doing so, it means that your Taskmaster can't get dragged into that same lane. So you start off the game with Sunspot, then you play Armor, then you play Shuri, then you play Red Skull. All four of those cards all to the same location, and then you play your Taskmaster for 24 power at a different location, and 24 power is hopefully enough to win that. And then obviously, you've got other energy throughout the course of the game as well. You didn't make a play on turn 3. You can still, zero Titania elsewhere on turn 3. So that is, I think, generally the optimal play line with a Shuri deck. To play around Arrow specifically, though, Arrow kind of going down in stock recently has made that not super important, because you also play around Arrow if you just go Taskmaster and then play Titania on the final turn, because then Arrow is moving the Titania instead. So all of that to say, I don't think that this is that big of a deal, but it's just a slight nerf, which I think is really rather good. I was coming up with a lot of creative nerfs in my head. Can you make Shuri generate a card that gives plus? What if Shuri gave you a Hulkbuster-esque card attached to it or something? I was thinking about things like that, and honestly, I'm happy that they went with this, which, by the way, that would allow you to counter Shuri with Wave and Sandman. That would be the upside of a Shuri like that. But I like this. I think that it still allows Shuri decks to do a lot of things that they were already doing. They will still be strong, just a little bit weaker, and I think that that's all that we need for right now. I will say Shuri's numbers are still a little bit interesting if you take a look at rate for energy compared to other 4-cost cards where you're typically paying for energy. I mean, the baseline, the thing, is a 4/6, right? Or is it no. Is it 4/6? I don't remember. Rock Slide is a 4/6 at the very least. So, and then you have cards like Dark Hawk, which with some synergy can be a little bit more, but generally it's like 4/9, we'll call it. So, Shuri is often a 4/11 if it's on She-Hulk, a 4/14 if it's on Red Skull. I think those numbers are still high. The awkward part is you can't nerf Shuri by giving her less power, and it's not as elegant to say give it -1 and then double it or something like that. And yeah, it's just a tricky thing to balance. I think I've probably said enough on Shuri. I think she's still gonna be good. So we'll see if it, being able to know where your opponent is going to play is definitely going to make things really interesting, and it'll be cool to see people also deviate from that. But I think things that make the locations matter. Not the locations, but the lanes. The lanes matter more. Is really important in Marvel Snap. One of the things that Shuri breaks, specifically with Taskmaster, but also really specifically with She-Hulk Taskmaster after a turn for Shuri, is it allows you to completely dodge the other mechanic of the game, which is making decisions based off of your opponent's previous decisions. Because in not committing any power to the board, it's kind of why Ceradex can be potentially a little bit problematic. If you hold on to all of your power for the very end of the game, it kind of breaks the core concept of Marvel Snap. So adding something that dictates where you have to play your next card, at the very least, the fact that the She-Hulk on turn 6 has to get played at the Shuri location definitely lets you know a little bit about what's going on. Now, what's tricky is if you're not playing that same style of deck, you have to commit more power to the board earlier, and then it is then harder to interact with She-Hulk because you will have priority. So that is something that definitely makes it still worth, having all of your cards come down later. But I wonder if you could, because you can already Cosmo a Shuri, what if it says, if you play your next, on reveal, if you play your next card here, it gets, on reveal, double its power. It just makes it like Cosmoable as well. I don't know. There's definitely some more text that they could add to this, and I don't think we're totally done with Shuri in the future. She's really strong. She's meant to be strong. She's fun. People like big numbers, but it's tough to make her work within the balance of the rest of the game. We might just need more hate cards that can specifically counter her. Speaking of hate cards that can specifically counter Shuri in some ways, Shuri's interesting because if you're Shuriing out a Red Skull, you love it getting leeched, though that in particular won't actually happen anymore. But the two things that you can leech, of course, are She-Hulk and Taskmaster. So this is definitely a card that needs to be in the game, though it's not necessarily fun. So they've tuned down leech. Now it is a 5/3 still, and now it says at the start of turn 6, remove all abilities from cards in your opponent's hand. Now, what's interesting here is this seems to no longer be an on-reveal ability. This card now triggers on the start of turn 6. So, that definitely adds some interesting applications to it. Leech can now not be countered. It can't be Enchantress, it can't be Cosmoed, it's just going to remove all abilities, and there's nothing you can do about that. And Yeah, kind of interesting there. The other thing too that is really important to note here, and maybe this gets into it, but one thing that you can't do now, they bring up not being able to do an early leech, a turn 3 leech, a turn 4 leech. Those feel even worse, and now those can't happen. You can only effectively get the turn 5 leech, but the other thing that you can't do, I don't know if you noticed it here, you now cannot play your leech into the Lockjaw. If you play that, leech is just going to go away and then it won't be around to trigger its ability. So that's pretty interesting. The other thing, of course, that I note as a Galactus player is that if you blow up the leech with Galactus, one of the few ways that you can actually interact with leech, which is awkward because leech is one of the few ways that you can interact with Galactus. So Galactus might be stronger than leech. It could potentially be weaker, but ultimately, I mean, I feel like this one in particular is definitely a buff to Galactus. And then you look at the Shuri change, well, you blow up the location they play their Shuri, and then they're not going to be able to get that double bonus off on the Shuri. So maybe Galactus getting a little bit stronger this patch. I'll read through the dev comments here. It's never been our goal for Leech to be really played. It's got a lot of power. Well, let me actually read that sentence. When that's happening, it usually means a finisher is That's why I got thrown off. Generically. Whoa. I was expecting that to say generally, and I think it's supposed to say generally, but instead it says generically, which also is a word and also makes sense in the context. Sorry, that just threw me off. Okay, so it's never been our goal for Leech to be a heavily played card, and we understand that's been a frustration lately. When it's happening, it usually means a finisher is generically strong. Okay, no, it is supposed to say generically. Strong against pure power like Leech Leader, and or a deck can play Leech earlier than... Okay, so when Leech has been strong, it's been strong in just decks that are just good. Kind of a weird thing to say. Interesting. We've tried in the past to weaken the stronger cards in those decks, but it's been a balance and design obstacle. Thus, we've decided to remove the early Leech from the equation. Leech is designed to counter some powerful endgame cards and combinations from a unique angle without any setup, which is important to have around in the event those decks begin to overperform. This change should let him fulfill that role when necessary without ever making him a foundational piece of the metagame. Yeah, I mean, I think that all of that's true. Being like just the random chances to early Leech with both Lockjaw and Time Stone, and then in the crazy scenarios where you get to Time Stone out a Leech and then Lockjaw it away, and then still get a bunch of power out of that. Yeah, that winds up being pretty crazy. So I do think it's kind of important in the deck for the same reasons that I said Shuri and She-Hulk and Taskmaster are too strong. Being able to drop all of your power on that final turn is a little bit too good, but it's also tricky. There's so many like cool level 6 effects in the game, and that's kind of like a really integral part of the game because those are the things you build around. You build around Spectrum, you build around Destroyer, though that one's a weirder example. Though no, a lot of the Destroyer decks now are running like Nimrod and stuff as opposed to just running Armor and Professor X. So yeah, you build around those expensive cards and it's awkward to get those leeched. It's probably going to happen a lot less now, and that is kind of the point. But we are going to see Leader come back in a really, really big way that I am super, super, super excited about, because I think that Leader was actually a necessary tool for the game and is good, is coming back. Leader's back, baby. It's going to be annoying. It's going to be oppressive, but it's cool. It's back. I really like the change that they have made with Leader. I wonder how many of these things have clown reactions. I guess that is, people just love doing that. So Lockjaw gets a change. Now says once per turn. Otherwise, it is exactly the same, right? After you play a card here, swap it with a card in your deck once per turn. So same exact thing. It's going to be a little bit less scary with the stones. It's also going to be a little bit worse with Swarm. And we'll change some of the curves out in a Lockjaw Dracula deck. That part I don't love. Worse as well with Jane Foster. But how do you make it? I mean, there's just too much randomness going on, but at the same time, it's so fun. I feel like this. No, it's probably a lot better. It's just so much worse now with the stones, which I think is really good, because you'll just have so much less time to play the stones, and that means that if you want to curve out, like typically, like you play Lockjaw on 3, and then that means 4, 5, and 6. Those are the turns that you're then using to fill up the location. You've got to play a card into Lockjaw every single turn. So it kind of works out if your turn 5 play is Time Stone into Lockjaw, because then you will have 7 energy on the 6th turn and can play a stone plus a 6 drop somewhere else. But otherwise, you can just see that curve gets very, very awkward. You can't just on turn 4 dump 3 stones and then efficiently use your energy from the rest of the game to play like Devil Dinosaur and we'll say Magneto or something on the final turn. So yeah, seems like it is pretty good. It is, I still think, quite good. Oh, you know what? Excuse me. Let's take a look at the comments. Lockjaw's a fun and exciting card, but the trigger of this good boy basically draws a card and generates up to 6 energy at random. It's a lot of variance, and it's very good in a lot of decks. As more cards are added to the game, and I keep saying this, like, they not only keep adding new powerful cards, they also add more ramp. And ramp is really, really, really strong in Marvel Snap, potentially stronger than in any other game, and that's part of the reason I'm drawn to Galactus decks. Being able to cheat the energy system can give you more options than your opponent has access to, and Lockjaw is kind of this really frustrating combination for a lot of players. I think it's really fun. I really like it, but the fact that it ramps you multiple times and has random elements attached to it can make it frustrating. But I don't know. I think it's also a really fun thing. Now, the one thing that they say here too, springing a late surprise out of Lockjaw, I think that's probably the most important one. On the final turn of the game, you can't just dump a bunch of cards into Lockjaw, which really gives you a tough trade-off on that final turn, because you either have to play something into Lockjaw or you can play a 6-cost card. So definitely something to consider there with the balance of it all. And I mean, it's probably fine. I'm just a little bit worried that it also hurts all of the other cool Lockjaw decks, and then maybe rewards you just kind of playing like a Lockjaw ramp deck as opposed to a more synergy-based Lockjaw deck. Like, here's what I'm getting at here. It's now much better to just play a consistent Lockjaw deck than it is to play something that tries to do something a little bit more wild with Storm or with Jane. And the Thanos deck might actually be better than just playing the consistent big stuff Lockjaw deck, which is just like, well, I mean, those decks do run Jane typically just because it's so good. But one thing that I think is probably true here, it will feel a lot worse to play your Jubilee into Lockjaw because there's only so much time that you have to play into Lockjaw anyways. So you can still actually play Lockjaw on 3 plus Wasp. You can still do that, and then turn 4, play your Jubilee into Lockjaw, and then turns 5 and 6, you play to your other locations. That curve still seems super, super strong. I think the curves with Swarm and stuff are mainly the ones that get hurt. So let's take a look here at America Chavez. Just different wording. It's going to interact slightly different with some other different things, and I'll also bring up the change to Jubilee here because this is pretty connected. So previous, it says you always draw this card on turn 6 and not before. I am kind of curious, will we see the same text, I guess, really just on Domino? Quicksilver can still do its own thing. I almost think like, well, no, they can't just make Quicksilver start in your opening hand, but I guess that is what Quicksilver says on it, right? Does it say it starts in your opening hand, or does it say you draw this on turn 1? I don't even remember. We'll take a look at that after. Now it starts on the bottom of your deck, and you draw this on turn 6. I think that this is kind of a weird choice to have things care about the ordering of your deck at all. But I also don't know why. Now, I do notice that Yondu, playing an America deck currently, Yondu always hits America, like, way too often, which is really, really good. It makes Yondu basically like a terrible play against me, because it just mills my America and then lets me draw, like, Null or Death on the final turn, and have that be big impact. So, this is, I would say, a nerf to the current version of Chavez for that specific reason, and I don't know why Yondu has to say that specifically. I also don't know why America has to function the way she does. Like, I don't know, you can just draw a random card from your deck, but it makes sense to, and I think it's more fun, like, Lockjaw, swap it with a card in your deck, not the top card in your deck. So Lockjaw can still grab Chavez in the exact same way. Otherwise, it's kind of just flavor to mill the top card, but it does now mean Yondu is going to be just that much more effective against decks playing America, which is probably a good thing, to be honest. I still think it's weird that Yondu destroys cards, but I guess that is another topic entirely. Jubilee now gets to take the top card of your deck, and like they said, they are now going to care about the top of your deck a little bit more, and we'll see. I mean, maybe that's relevant because you know, on reveal, put a card on top of your deck, or put a card on top of your opponent's deck. Some things like that does potentially open up some cool combos, so I will wait to see what they are planning on doing with that, of course. But here is the big change of the patch, and okay, some thumbs down, some clowns, but ultimately I'm pretty excited about this, and I think that we'll read the developer comments here after we read the update to leader. So it's back to being a 6/2. It now says, on reveal, copy the enemy card or cards with the highest power played this turn, but on your side. So this is now going to feel a lot more like the old leader, but just toned down a little bit. And there are still some really cool things that you can do with this. Specifically, waving out a leader will always copy the exact card that they play, unless of course they are also playing a Death or a She-Hulk alongside it, so that is something to look out for. But then Sandman, or potentially Electro, you could Electro and then pass it with Viper, so that way your opponent can only play one card, or any locations like Oscorp Tower, something like that. But those are a little more niche. Let's talk about Sandman, which is a card that previously did see some play with leader, and even Electro. I don't think you want Viper in that deck though. Sorry, got a phone call, but I do really appreciate this. Let's read the dev comments here now. We were clearly too harsh on leader with his previous nerf. Totally agree. Kind of just killed him, and we're dismayed that an action became a go-to example for how ruinous a nerf can be. Okay, fair enough. Admitting their mistakes, I think, is always great. Our balance philosophy is to preserve as much playability as we reasonably can when weakening cards, and we didn't succeed here previously. With this change, we're aiming to bring his strength back up to a playable spot for a 6-cost card. And I just want to talk about that for a second. There is a lot in digital games because like everybody gets so sick of seeing the card. I think that this is potentially going to be the problem with Shuri, and everybody's playing Shuri. And with such a small change to Shuri, people are going to keep playing it because it is something that they are comfortable with. And that's such a tricky balance, because you want if you don't make your changes over the top, then people are just going to keep playing the same things because they don't want to change their decks. But if you make your changes too over the top, then you just kind of like alienate people because you are just totally gutting the decks that they had built. So it's a really tricky situation on both sides, but I'm glad to see that we're going to see a little bit more of the old leader, just not quite as strong as it was, specifically against certain types of decks, against decks that are dropping a bunch of power on that final turn. One thing that's funny is that if you She-Hulk Taskmaster on the final turn, leader will grab both of those. Otherwise, it's going to grab a lot of hit monkeys, and that deck, like a Sarah deck that just drops a bunch of stuff with hit monkey, is typically going to be pretty good against leader, though. Like I said, Sandman is going to be the main combo with this, as well as Wave. So one curve that could be pretty cool, you could go Wave into... Okay, yeah, here, let's go over a few sample curves. Wave into leader, into Sandman, into Odin. Pretty good. You'll get to copy their cards twice with your leader. Another cool curve, Electro into Sandman, into leader, into Odin. You'll get to copy whatever they play on those final 2 turns twice. So both of those curves, I think, are really strong ways to play leader. And I also think that leader is cool here because this is a nice little nerf again to Galactus. One of the most annoying things for me when playing a Galactus deck is I would slam down my Null and leader would get an exact copy of it. And yeah, that one is just annoying. Leader is like tough to Shang-Chi into as well because they'll get 5 power over 2 separate cards, neither of which are Shang-Chi-able. So they'll add more power to the board than you. And yeah, I think that leader's going to be a nice tool in the metagame and a way to kind of build those Sandman decks back again. So I think that is something I might try pretty soon. I might switch off of Galactus, and I'm pretty excited about those curves that I just laid out there. There's some other fun stuff that you can play with those that I've played in the past. Let's get into the other stuff in the video. I've been talking for a little bit now. This is no longer an afternoon snap. This is a full dang video. I don't know how many of these are going to be super impactful. Tapping a Kang's duplicate. This is interesting that there was an infinite loop if Morph spawned randomly via X Mansion and copied a Kang, but I guess they fixed that. I don't know how they fixed that. Maybe Morph gets removed from X Mansion? I'm curious. I would like more words on this. Anything else relevant here? I did see that there was less crashes with Galactus, and also Kang will... Where's the Kang one? Kang means that Kang UI typically gets very funky with the snap at the top of the screen. It's like multiple overlapping things, and you can never tell how many cubes you're actually playing for. So I believe that was fixed at some point in here. I just can't... Okay, yeah, snapping after Kang's been played should no longer result in overlapping UI. I do want to talk about this a little bit. There's a very weird thing with Kang and Galactus. I'll bring it up right here. I think I've touched on it briefly in some other videos, or at the very least in my gameplay, you can sometimes see it happen. I will often snap during the Kang and Galactus animations, which is a little bit cheeky, but it just like potentially allows players to not see it. I don't always do it, but it is also like stronger to kind of try to get away with a little sneaky snap, and more so I just think it's funny. But especially with Kang, that is, I think, a little bit more... I mean, Galactus, you're going to snap if the Galactus goes off. So that one feels more reasonable, and it's very obvious. But with Kang, it's almost like cheating because the UI makes it very difficult to see what's going on. Now, if your opponent is playing with volume, and I think even the haptic feedback, the vibrations in the game will let you know that a snap has occurred, but it's just something that I think should be cleaned up at some point. Let's see what else we got here. Series drop. Okay, yes, we already talked about this a little bit. I'm gonna open up a Super Scroll, a Black Panther, and a Bast, and we are going to check out the token shop as well. There is one other thing that is kind of new, though. We're not going to see the ramifications of Kitty Pryde for another month, at which point everybody's going to get it, and the people that have purchased it are going to be compensated with an additional 2,000 tokens over what they spent. So seems pretty fair to me. However, Kitty Pryde is a lot worse now. You can now no longer play it on turn 5 and have it stick around, and you have to play it on turn 6 if you want to get any value out of it. There's no way to keep it on the board because it always returns at the start of your turn. So I think that's going to make her a lot worse. It's going to make her a lot less competitive next to Sunspot. Kitty Pryde could also probably use some additional power now to compensate from the fact that she is harder to play. And yeah, that is just a little bit awkward. I am glad that they did already nerf Sunspot, just -1 power. I think we're already kind of feeling that just because it is such a ubiquitous card. But Kitty Pryde is not going to be nearly as good anymore. There's also a big thing here. I think the thing that you have to play it on turn 6 is pretty obviously apparent, but there's another thing. I think previously a really good curve with Kitty Pryde was turn 1 Kitty, turn 2 Beast, returning Kitty to your hand and then making it a 0-cost card, and then you can just play it and return it every turn from there on. And you know, this also has a similar thing that I've been pointing out multiple times in this video of not committing your power to any lane specifically. She still has that. Just the fact that she's so much less flexible is going to be really, really tough. Now, I think for the most part, the decks that people were looking at with Kitty Pryde were Hitmonkey Serra decks, which I think is why people are upset, because they bought the Hitmonkey Season Pass, and then you have this Kitty Pryde that you can never use and then is even nerfed before it comes out. So some people might feel like their Hitmonkey money was a little bit wasted, which is unfortunate, but I don't know. You get what you pay for in that capacity, but that is what we're going to see, and when Kitty Pryde eventually does release, everybody will get it. So this was unfortunate. The game doesn't work with how they wanted Kitty Pryde to work, and I was surprised when I initially saw Kitty Pryde. It was definitely a bold thing to bring up, that you could like return cards to your hand. Before we even saw like activated abilities, we saw a card that just immediately activates and returns to your hand, which seems much more complicated in a game where you can kind of take back your plays in the way that you can in Marvel Snap. So that's really interesting. But now, to cap this video off, I want to hop into a game. So let's hop into the game rather. I am also going to hop into a game because I want to check out, they said there's some new UI on the actual game, but I wanted to take a look at the token shop in this video. So here we'll see that the token shop is broken down into 3 parts: an ultimate variant, the new weekly spotlight, and then a series 4 or 5 card. And then I guess it is just a choose your card, but maybe, you know what, maybe if you are not series 3 complete, there's another part of this shop that is a series 3 card as well. I think there has to be, because that, I think, is like the main purpose of the token shop, as much as I will never use it to purchase. Oh wait, you know what though? No, because I'm not series 3 complete. Wait, what? Give me 1 second here. Let's go back onto Discord. So, did I miss something? Somebody's gonna have to let me know in the comments. Can you no longer buy series 3 cards in the token shop? Because I know that, so obviously there's this too. But if you claim this, so let's claim, right? Let me switch back to the wider screen. Let's claim this, and let me also switch to a bigger camera here. Oh, I can go even bigger, can't I? Sure. I'll claim this because I'm going to grab all 3 of them right now. Cool, cool. Oh, and this is just a base card, so it doesn't have any additional rarity on top of that. Let's get out of here and then come back. And now what does this section look like? Come back next season for another card. So there's no way to just purchase series 3 cards from the... That can't be right. No, I still have series 3 cards that I can... Alright. That's really, really weird. I pinned Thanos. I can finally get him with the Token Tuesday. That's really, really weird to me. I'm not going to get Thanos just yet, just in case there's something else that I want, and especially with the Lockjaw nerf. Not going to go for Jeff either. Not super interested in him, though. I'm happy that he's making other people happy. I don't know, I almost don't want to do a reserve opening right now because I'm really confused, but I'm sure somebody in the comments can let me know. Can you no longer use the token shop to get series 3 cards? That seems really weird. Anyways, here's Super Scroll, and then Black Panther will be in just a few more chests here. Here we go. Okay, so there's both of our new cards, and that was really quick, and now all of a sudden, I did not like plan it out to be that quick. All of a sudden, we are complete and no longer have to open up collector's reserves again. Let's see if we can make something fun happen with a ramp deck here. So let's go in here. The one thing I do have to say is I feel like this client is a lot faster since the last time. Oh, I guess Wave does not have the word energy on it. Well, it is going to be an on reveal deck. I don't think I ever play Psylocke. Yeah, I don't think so. So it's an on reveal. Let's do on reveal by cost. Yeah. And then we could play Viper. I think that's probably a little bit too cheeky though. Maximus, Polaris. I know I want Jubilee. Don't think I want Shuri. Absorbing Man is probably also pretty cool with Leader. Though it's hard to make the curve work out exactly. I think that this is probably pretty fun. Definitely going Doctor Doom and Magneto. And then typically the way that you played this deck previously, you did play Arrow in it. Because that's also good with Absorbing Man and all of these other things. All right, let's throw in Arrow, give ourselves a little bit more lane control. Absorbing Man, Spider-Man is kind of cute. But what I think we do now is we throw in Sandman. There's no reason to play Leech in this deck anymore. This was previously a Leech deck because you could ramp into it, which made it really strong. Oh, I forgot to grab a Wave. We'll go back and grab Wave in a second here. See if there's anything else big that we'd really like. Another 5-drop or another 6-drop. I don't think we ever play America in this one. Not gonna play Agatha, though you could. Vision might be good, Gamora might be good, Captain Marvel might also be good. Kang? I don't think we need Kang. So I think how you would play this deck in the past would be also a lot of you want to curve out, and typically this was done with Ebony Maw. So I'm going to try out Ebony Maw again. I feel like I do want a cheaper card on the curve. Absorbing Man may be too awkward with the rest of it, so typically you would either play Scorpion or you just play Lizard. Play Scorpion. We'll give this a shot. And this is called Deck 20. It's my second one called Deck 20. But let's see if there's anything new going on in the game. And Marvel Snap Stream. Alright, this should... Oh, it's going to give me a deck over on the side of the screen. I don't need that. Should have taken a picture before we started. You know what? Let's not worry about all of this. Let's just look at this, because that's what we wanted to do, is we wanted to take a look at the new setup. So now we see that we are on this rock floating in space. That's kind of interesting. It looks like we're up against a bot. I'm just going to snap to kick things off. We've got Wave, Leader, Odin. All of those things are pretty powerful. We also have Kamar Taj Leader. Okay, well this seems like a pretty powerful way to start off. Now, I guess I probably just Ebony Maw here. but I'm also tempted to Scorpion into Camartage and really kick things off with that. So let's do that. We could potentially hit him with a triple Scorp here. And maybe Scorpion isn't the best with leader, but still seems good enough. And then I'll just wave over into Stark Tower. Yeah, the game is playing really, really smooth, and also I'm recording right now too, but it all feels like it is running really, really nicely here for us. So now I'm just going to leader. Sure. I just have to hope that their card doesn't get played here. Okay, well maybe this will be great for us. Okay, wait. They played Hobgoblin into Camartage. They got me good here. They got me good because they give themselves one Hobgoblin, but they gave me two. All right, well played. Well played, Ghost. We have priority here, so we probably just arrow into Sinister London, and they get dragged into Stark Tower or Camartage. A little bit awkward, but it keeps them out of London for turn 5. Oof, that was bad. The double Hobgoblin, it's like they had Daredevil Sight, or they are a bot. All right, we arrow them over into the Stark Tower. They're going to play a Maximus. And from here, I think Absorbing Man wins. I think that will keep them out of Sinister London. And we already are winning by 10 in the Stark Tower. So that should be enough to just secure the win. Oh, you know what? I could just throw it here. But I think we actually just play Odin. There's 2 scenarios here. We Odin, and then we arrow them into the Stark Tower while adding 8 power to both locations, and that should be good. We'll be up by 18. Or we hit them with the leader, which will give us 2 copies of whatever they play in Sinister London. Could mean we lose in Stark Tower. I don't know. This just seems more fun. I think that there's a 50-50 shot that we lose this here. And they could also play multiple cards with leader. The Odin is going to make these Hobgoblins go back and forth a bunch, but ultimately won't have any real impact, I believe, because I think they'll move back and forth a few times. Okay, we're going to fast forward through all of those Hobgoblins, and the Magneto moved the Maximus. Wow. Wow, we actually... Oh, wait, okay. We weren't in as bad of a spot as I thought we were going to be. It's unfortunate that we zoomed through all of that, but we got to see fast forwarding as well on the new board. So that was definitely a good one to finish things off, but Magneto should have been enough to grab a win in Stark Tower, but our Magneto that we got from the leader, which I didn't realize we were only going to grab that once because Odin's here, obviously, that moved Maximus back, which meant that it didn't come down to differential, but we would have won this regardless. We were winning here by 18 and only losing here by 2, despite the double Hobgoblin. Sick read from my opponent. For today, that is going to be it for me. Yeah, maybe some more streams though in the future, or some more live Marvel Snap gameplay. We were definitely able to play a fun one here with just one game played, but for today, that's going to be it for me. So thank you guys very much for watching. I'm No Lux Given. Peace.